Welcome to the Life Engineering Podcast. My name is Gabriela, former chemical engineer, relationship coach, and author. In each episode, we'll uncover the wisdom, strategies, and tools to help you build thriving relationships and purpose-driven careers. My wish is that something shared in this space touches your heart, brings clarity, or gently guides you toward what you need most in your life right now. Thank you for being here. Let's begin now. Welcome back to the Life Engineering Podcast, a space where we explore what it really takes to design and hopefully inspire you to live a life of no regrets. I'm your host, Gabriela, relationship and career coach, and the author of Becoming a Power Couple. Now, creating a life of no regrets requires one essential ingredient, and that is agency. And today we're diving into what it truly means to practice and live with agency, but from a very unique angle. You see, when most people talk about climate change, the conversation gets heavy. Fear, panic, problem consciousness. But what if the most powerful way to make change isn't rooted in fear at all, but in solutions, opportunities, and imagination? Yes, you are in the Life Engineering Podcast. This is all about engineering. So, my guest today is Josh Dorfman. He has built his career exactly around that. He's the creator, author, and host of the Lazy Environmental List, the award-winning Sundance Channel TV series, Sirius XM radio show, and author of books that show how impact can come from practical, accessible actions. He has co-founded and led climate tech companies like Planted, recognized by Fast Company as one of the world's most innovative companies. And today, he runs Supercool, a media company spotlighting climate solutions that don't just help the planet, but they also enrich our lives. I love Josh's perspective because it's not about guilt or despair, it's about agency. And that shift in mindset changes everything. I can't wait for you to hear his conversation. Hello, Josh, and welcome.
Thank you so much. It is wonderful to be here, Gabriela.
I've been looking forward to our conversation since our pre-call. And in that pre-call chat we had, you share a story about your grandmother and a newspaper that really captured your philosophy of focusing on solutions instead of problems. Can you share that with our listeners?
Absolutely. So I used to enjoy and look forward to visiting my grandparents. They had retired to Florida. We grew up I grew up in Westchester County in New York. My grandparents had lived in Queens. And I just used to get such a kick out of my grandma. And I remember one morning I woke up, she was sitting out by the pool. She had the entire newspaper spread in front of her. She had her coffee and she was just starting to flip through some pages. And I said, "Grandma, how are you doing?" And she looked at me and she said, "I don't know yet. I haven't read the paper. I don't know who I'm furious at yet. I can't decide who I'm angry with."
But, we're laughing, but that's such a powerful story because I believe that most of us are wired to look for problems, right? We are consumers of problems. In the past, your grandma, newspaper. Today is, whether it's the news, Facebook, even Facebook, it's all about, problems, the media. So I also recall you said before that problem consciousness lowers our agency, while opportunity consciousness levels it up. Can you unpack that? Because that's too powerful not to.
Yeah, I think from my lens, I think that's exactly right. And my lens is focused professionally on climate change. How do you solve climate change? And the way that I've come to look at that is, of course, we know this is a massive challenge on civilizational scale. The question will always be, and it will never go away, are we doing enough? Are we going fast enough? That dynamic will always be there. And you can spend your time focused on that. You can spend your time focused on the problem. Spending your time focusing on the problem probably isn't going to solve the problem, but yet you have the opportunity, should you choose, to be kind of problem oriented. At the same time, though, it's equally true that there are really a breathtaking amount of climate solutions that are working today. And by working, I mean they are actually in the market, scaling up, taking market share, cutting emissions, helping other companies become more profitable as they cut their emissions. Usually it may be cutting energy, it may be finding a way to get more value out of recycled products. But there are all these solutions in the market today that are effectively making life better, solving climate, cutting carbon, and usually in the process, life gets better. If you build, for example, a building that is zero carbon, very often you're taking toxic chemicals out of that building. Very often you're making the walls very energy efficient, which also probably means very thick, very soundproof, triple glazed windows that are great views and quiet. All these things go hand in, and they're scaling today. And so it's a choice. You can choose to look at the opportunities and the companies and the work and the improved standards of living and quality of life and all the examples around the world where that's happening. Loads of cities where there's innovative mayors and innovative communities really doing remarkable work. Or you can choose to stay stuck looking at the problem. The question is, which one enables you internally to feel like you want to get up out of bed and go do something proactive to be part of change and maybe look for another opportunity for yourself? I choose the opportunity lens. It is not to dismiss the problem, but it is to say where I focus my energy is where I'm going to either unlock opportunity and have agency to act or feel stuck. And that is a choice that each of us has as it relates to, in this case, climate.
I have goosebumps listening to you because I recently watched a documentary about the semiconductor industry. In particular, the part of the production process of the chip that it's called lithography. And of course, it speaks to me because when I work as an engineer for Intel, I was in that department of the printing, the lithography. And I saw a documentary about the difference between Nikon, who used to be the leader in the field, and today is ASML, which is a Dutch company, and how Nikon was more or less building a fortress and perfecting what they already knew. And ASML, and seeing that ASML was building a network of collaboration and opportunities. In Nikon, when there was the need for a new technology, Nikon said, being such a more heavy or solidified corporate company, said, no, it's too risky. It's too innovative. We can't do it. And ASML, because they were smaller, they were more agile, but also more innovative, more into collaboration, working with their clients to become also partners. They just saw opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. And today they have 100% monopoly on the market. It's incredible. So I love what you said about opportunity. And my next question following up this is, how can leaders and entrepreneurs apply this shift in their own lives?
Yeah, I think that it's, of course, because we are talking about a mindset, right? I am applying it through the lens of climate. It's funny, I think if you listen to, and I'm sure leaders will know this, but if you listen to, I was watching the documentary with Anthony Robbins about his company. I don't know, I am not a guru or whatever it was, but one of the things that right, I'm not your guru, right? But it wasn't that. One of the things he just said, I think in that documentary about running the company, or I'd heard him say recently, was, look, I've got, I run this company. Of course, this is about helping people be at their peak, right? Getting there, staying there. It's like, I have however many employees, 1,300, 1,500 employees around the world. It's like, I wake up in the morning, I know there are going to be problems, right? It is inevitable that somewhere in the world, there will be a problem that probably requires my attention. And here I am trying to stay peak to help other people stay peak. And this is my life's work. And yet here are all these problems coming at me. Right. And so every CEO, every leader knows that no matter what, once you have employees, once you have an organization, you've got problems. Right. And the question will always be, what are you going to focus on? How do you feel about that problem, right? Is this something that's going to suck energy, or is this an opportunity to say, how do I improve my organization? How do I raise somebody up? Of course, the work can feel tedious, but it really is, what will be the attitude I bring to this? Because by solving these challenges, I will make my company stronger, right? There is some good that is going to come out of the inevitability of what is in our lives. And climate is just the same. I mean, it is here with us. It is this challenge, right? We run companies, we are leaders, we have challenges. Really, the question will always be, what do you bring to the table? And even just this morning, I've woke up, I've been stressed. I've had some things I'm trying to do with work, trying to push some projects forward. It's not going as fast as I want, whatever it might be. I'm scrolling Instagram this morning, and I see this video. I don't even know who I'm following, but I see this video in my feed of this probably like a 6-year-old girl, and she comes into a room and she's got sunglasses on and there's some music playing and she's doing this like hardcore dance. You know, she's got these like aggressive dance moves, and the overlay was, okay, yes, it's Monday. Grab some coffee. You know, it could like be amazing. Friday will be here soon enough. Have an amazing week. And it just like triggered for me. It's like, right, it's my choice. I have a choice. I'm going to be amazing, just like that 6-year-old girl with the sunglasses. Let's go. And so I do think it's inevitable. You have problems, you have stress, all leaders. It's what frame can you get into to see it as an opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, what you just described, the opportunity in every challenge, it's a playful mindset. And yes, it is the mindset of a child. And when we mature, yes, we don't want to stay obviously in a child mindset. We want to mature into an adult and hopefully more of a sage mindset. But there are certain qualities of the child which we kind of named them in the intro of the podcast: imagination, playfulness, seeing opportunities that we want to keep. We don't have to leave those behind. We want to transform the child mindset, the selfish, the less considerate part of being a child that is self-centered. But we want to take with us, whether it's in our marriage, that I usually talk about playfulness and opportunity, or in our workplace, those qualities that allow us to experience life, because it is the way you experience it in a much more opportunistic way, if I might say it that way, in a good way.
If I could add to that, I think
Sure.
the other thing, when you think about when I think about my children, I have 3, 10, 13, and 15. And so this is very strong still in my 10-year-old. But when you think about kids too, yes, they have those personality attributes that you described. The other thing that they have that I think is so powerful is this view of this world and themselves in it that's like limitless, right? And so if you ask yourself, what could I do today if I truly felt limitless, right? And and I'm also an entrepreneur, and so as an entrepreneur, you're usually trying to carve out something in the world that doesn't exist. Sometimes the world just moves with you and it flows, and sometimes you're brushing up against resistance. And the question is, do you move through it? Do you move around it? What's holding you back? And so this is for me personally. I feel like I know when I'm limiting my views. Oh my gosh, I need to raise money. Well, I can't call that person. Well, why not? Because I'm assuming it's not the right fit, or they're going to say, how do I know? If I had no limits, who would I call today? Who would I ask for money? What might I do? Right. And so I think there's that limitlessness of children is something that we lose, and I think is important to remind ourselves of and cultivate.
I love that. And why do you think so many get stuck in panic or problem mode?
Well, I think, like you said, Gabriela, it's in our culture, so it's constantly reinforced. I think I will speak, just personally from my own upbringing, my own family. Right, I had what I would say was a very loving upbringing. I had a lot of felt unconditional love from my parents. Yet I still think and my parents were entrepreneurs, so they had that characteristic. But even within all of that, I still think that I was raised in somewhat of a fear based kind of mindset, right? That there's limits. So you can't go play that sport. You can't go travel to that place. You can't go get that job, right? And so I just think we live in a culture where there's that fear. I think we have, just sometimes by default, peers are people in our lives who feel threatened if we rise too high. Somehow it devalues them. And so there is that societal pressure that we feel by people who we think have our self-interest at heart, and they may be loving, but they're also dealing with their own stuff. And that stuff tends to want to keep everybody in a bit of a lower, sort of more mediocre kind of place. And it's very hard to if you it's hard to put and cultivate a mindset when you're surrounded by those sorts of influences. It's hard to go identify the other influences that might be more positive for you and kind of rebuild your peer set. All of that takes work, but it's not the default. And so I think the default wants us to kind of stay in inertia, and it therefore takes more effort to start the kind of that positive feedback loop where you're spinning up and now you have all the positive momentum moving you forward. That you're running against the culture in many respects, unfortunately, and that poses challenges.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say it's much easier to accept than to reject. No, I mean,
Yes.
and I
Yeah,
mean
that's right.
mindsets and beliefs that we
Yeah.
acquire. Yeah. So you build companies. I mean, it's so fun to talk to you because you've done so much. You build companies, you've written books, you created media that reframes climate solutions. What have you learned about sustaining agency when the challenges seem so overwhelming? And maybe this is more of a follow up question to the previous one.
Yeah. Well, some of the things that I've mentioned, are little tricks, tools that I sort of mental tricks that I'm constantly playing with myself. Reminders, I say tricks, maybe just call them tools, whatever you want. But the way that my self talk, right? Try to kind of alter my self talk to be more supportive. Just in terms of personal habits, I mean, I am truly in nature as much as possible. I mean, I'm fortunate. I live by the beach in South Carolina, and we picked a town that intentionally has lots and lots of trees very close to the ocean, and that so I can be out in nature very quickly, and that is so really crucial for me. But I think, more than that, when what just from a company building standpoint, what I've really come to learn as I've gotten older is the importance of building with a team, even if it's a team of two, but having a team of co-founders, people in something together, is I find as an entrepreneur so valuable because I've built companies now or worked on companies for 2 decades, started companies, and I know that there are ups and downs. I know that if I'm down, like I will get through it. But man, it's so much easier if there's someone else there who's not down while you're down to help lift you up. And then you can do that for somebody else to move through together. I think doing it as opposed to doing it alone, I've really learned that having that support with someone who's really in the trenches with you, feeling your ups, your downs. But so the company I started 4 years ago was called Planted, and that company makes building materials. We make them out of grass instead of trees, structural. You build houses out of them. We work with D.R. Horton, the largest home builder in America. I started that company with two former engineers working on rocket ships at SpaceX. Brilliant, brilliant engineers. It was so three of us in the trenches. And that was really wonderful because it was almost inevitable that one of us was going to be feeling down about something at some point. And, I was CEO, one was COO, Chief Operating Officer, one was Chief Technology Officer, but we really ran the company together. We made decisions together. We met every day. And man, if one of us was down, to have two to lift the other up through that process, we're trying to raise money, we're trying to change the world. That's an incredibly supportive system to have for people, I believe, and certainly for me.
It seems like the energy that I pick from you is that you're having fun. I'm not saying there's joy in every moment, but the way you have built and structured your businesses, it feels to me that you're having fun, that it's not only meaningful to you, That's for sure, but also you're enjoying it. And I think you're enjoying it. I mean, I'm really curious to ask you what's your genius zone, because I have a feeling that I might sense it, but I want to ask you first, what's your genius zone? What is that when you're doing that at work, it doesn't feel like work at all?
For me, it's kind of the creativity around, I would say, messaging and communication. It's finding the way to express an idea, or finding the way to express a company, to take an inspiration, a vision, and try and present that to people and get them to come along with you, to want to be on that path with you. I feel like that's really where I am. Yeah, I feel like right in there is my genius. And so I tend to be, unless it's so, when I'm working on like a high growth startup, and knowing that there will be, if it's successful, many phases on that path, CEOs who have different skill sets, that you need different skill sets as a CEO at different times in that journey as the company grows and becomes mature. I am a genius at that early stage to create enthusiasm, create excitement, take something that is ambiguous, vague, give it structure, and bring it into the world and birth it. That's really where I am at my greatest strength.
I love it, to inspire people with your words. You remind me what there's a book called Before Happiness, written by a psychologist called Sean Aker. He talks about that concept of evoke genius. And he says that evoke genius is the person that has the vision, right? He can see the gap. He says, we're here, but we can be there and we can close that gap. And then not only he has the vision, is the visionary, but also knows how to use his words to inspire people to join to close that gap.
Yes, I love that. I love it.
Yeah. So
Tell me, wait, what's the name of that book?
before happiness.
Before Happiness. Okay. That sounds like something that I need to read. I think that, I would say, Gabriela, that from an operating standpoint, I do think it is something that I'm very strong at. Also, probably related, big decisions, and I've made big decisions in my life based on where I think the world is going. And I'll give you two examples. In the 90s, when I finished university, I went to China for 2 years. I went to Nanjing first to teach English, and then I was working for an American company that actually, of all things, made bicycle locks. There were a billion people riding bicycles in China. It seemed like a really good idea. But when I went to China, or when I was finishing up university in 1994, I wrote my thesis about China, and it was crystal clear to me that in the 20th, China and America, this relationship would come to define the 21st century. I could see that 30 years ago. And I remember having conversations with my dad's friends, businessmen, business people, and they would say things like, "Why don't you go somewhere that actually like matters, like Vietnam?" Or, not that there's anything wrong with Vietnam, but like, or like, "Why don't you go to like Italy and learn Italian?" Or like, well, because I see something. And where I'm going with this was, I wasn't the first person, the first American at all into China. Of course, Nixon opened China in 1972. There'd been Americans in China for years, but not a lot. I saw it early, not first, but early. And then when I was in business school, graduating right around 2000, I could see clearly that this sustainability and business thing was going to be massive over the next few decades. It just became very, very clear to me that we were going to be in a world where solving climate, trying to live more sustainably, this was going to go from like a fringe hippie. It really was so like hippie, earthy, very, niche, very small, to something that would become very, very massive. I wasn't, obviously, I mean, there'd been the Earth catalog and all these things that had been done in like the 1960s, early 1970s. I wasn't by no means first, but I can see when things are about to tip into the mainstream and become huge, massive trends. And I've tried at pivotal moments in my life to get in front of those, and felt like I want to be in the biggest, I want to play kind of on the biggest stage. And China, and for me, solving, climate, these are the biggest challenges. These were the stages that I wanted to go.
Well, there you go. We're talking about agency. And when somebody told you, why don't you go here? You said, no, because I can see it here. I love that. You also use the word play. I want to play.
That's right. That's right. And I love that too, Gabriela, because I think that for me, Yes, I for sure derive so much satisfaction from my work. And satisfaction is different than play, and satisfaction is different than joy. Well, it may have actually certain things to do with joy in my mind. It's different than happiness. It's a different way, right? And so I do try, I am playful. I do try to bring play to what we do. But I always think about entrepreneurship. The best quote I ever heard, or the best way I ever heard it described was, I don't remember, it was either Ben or Jerry, but it was one of Ben and Jerry's from Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream. They were being interviewed. This was not long ago. And the interviewer said, so was this like the most incredible experience ever, building Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream from Burlington, Vermont, a little store, to this like incredible cultural icon? And this, and one of them was like, no, it wasn't. It was terrifying. He's like, I felt the entire time like I was falling off a cliff and just trying to grab any branch or anything that would break my fall, because everything was coming at us so fast. He's like, was it the happiest and the most like, the happiest I ever felt? He's like, absolutely not. He's like, was it the greatest, most incredible peak experience of my life that lasted for decades because I never felt more alive? Hands down, it was the greatest gift I could have ever possibly had. And to me, that describes how I feel about entrepreneurship. And I just love that, because that sounded so authentically accurate to, I think, what the experience is for so many of us.
I love every word you're saying. Honestly, it makes me reflect on what it takes to live a life of no regrets, which is the main purpose of this podcast, not to compromise on what matters to us. And you said satisfaction. For me, I'll share with you my take on that. The way that I experience satisfaction is when energy flows in alignment with my values and the direction of my vision, but also in alignment, two things: direction of my vision and in alignment with my values.
That makes a lot of sense to me. That makes a ton of sense to me. Just to, if I can comment on that, I have thought, it's interesting, and this is what I was really looking forward to being able to talk to you. I thought years ago, when I started my first sustainable company, it was this modern design, sustainable furniture company. And this was in 2004. And what I thought was, okay, so this beautiful furniture is made with recycled materials, reclaimed materials, whatever it may be, but it's really beautiful design, really beautiful furniture. And I remember thinking, like, what I'm trying to do is to enable people to live their lives aligned, in this case, with their environmental values. Now, a lot of this was also made locally and other values, but like for me, it was environment. I'm trying, because that to me, that alignment does also feel like an opportunity to raise consciousness, or if we're conscious of our values, to bring that into alignment with our actions, right? That I felt like I am one lane here. I'm a vehicle to enable that alignment. And that too has been, I haven't thought about it in a long time, but it was a very, very like conscious motivator for me. And probably in the way that I was communicating that first company was in those kinds of terms, that we were bringing this new thing into the world, this sort of modern capability to live modern lifestyles aligned with our environmental values and really sync those things up. It seemed like there were sort of parallels in some way. Yeah, it's commerce. Yes, it's shopping. Yes, it doesn't sound spiritual, but yet it's still in that alignment of values is a very powerful idea.
Yeah. It's the why behind everything, which is very important. So tell me more about Supercool. What's the mission of Supercool?
Supercool stems from having built Planted, so this company where we're making these, what we call carbon negative building materials, meaning the more we actually put these materials in the world, the more we're removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
Okay.
And sequestering it in the walls of homes, right? Like that's the way we built this flywheel. And so because we have this all electric, very low carbon production process to take this very fast growing grass that's absorbing carbon as it grows. So we're pulling carbon down, and then we turn it into materials without giving a lot of the carbon back. And we're able to then have this material that sequesters it in walls, carbon negative. And What shifted for me is I'd been someone with like the lazy environmentals, which you mentioned was a very consumer focused dialogue, to building a company that was very business to business, where we're selling to other home builders. And when I stepped down as CEO, I started to look around. This was last year to say, well, what other innovation is out there that's happening like Planted? And what I was thrilled to discover was that there were countless versions of Planted in other industries, meaning these either technologies or design solutions that were helping to scale climate solutions, cut carbon, grow profits for their customers, or cut expenses for their customers, but build these really fabulous businesses that were really shifting the economy. That we were no longer in this moment of, oh my gosh, can we solve this one day? It's like, no, no, no. The solutions are actually here. I felt that having a background in media, there was an opportunity to start to talk to those companies or those mayors of cities who are policymakers who are doing really cool stuff and tell great stories. Within those stories are case studies of the solutions. What makes them successful? What enables them to scale and succeed in the market where others fail? What's their super, their super genius, their superpower? Could we distill that and share it? So even if you're not in an industry where um, you don't run a building and you're not really concerned about the energy consumption in a building, you might want to hear about this company called Brainbox that uses AI to cut the HVAC use in that building by like up to 25%, cut carbon emissions by 40%, because the AI knows what the wind speed is around the building, what the angle of the sun is, who's going to be in a space with 96% confidence 6 hours from now so it can slowly cool or slowly heat. You would probably want to know about that. And we're going to tell you about the genius behind that so you can apply it to your industry as well. I just thought there was a really big opportunity to start telling these stories. And so our theory of change is the more we're sharing stories about solutions that are here, that are proven in market and de-risked, it's much easier for a manager or a director or a vice president to go then take that solution to their CEO without being concerned about being fired because their competitors are already doing it and cutting their impact on the planet. And so that's our theory of change. Let's tell these stories so that others can hear about things that are proven, real, operating in the world, de-risked, so we can spread them faster so they become adopted.
I love this collaboration spirit. Love it.
Thank you.
And, question for our listeners, if for somebody who isn't a climate entrepreneur but wants to feel empowered at home, at work, in their community, what's one way they can shift from feeling powerless to feeling like a change maker when it comes to climate change?
Well, I think one of the biggest opportunities, this also goes back to my days as the lazy environmentalist, which means looking for ways to go green, be more sustainable without having to work very hard, right? So that we don't have to go out of our way. But one of the biggest opportunities I really do feel is where we bank, where we park our cash, because most major banks today underwrite billions, if not trillions of dollars of new investment in fossil fuels every year. And that is our money sitting in their savings, in our savings account, that gets used to underwrite those loans. There are today banks with different mandates, different investment missions. One is called, I'm not related to it in any way, but it's called Climate Finance Bank. And they have savings accounts, they have checking accounts, they have business checking accounts, they have high yield savings accounts. It's not a difficult thing to move your cash to another bank that is also FDIC backed, right? So it's less risk. And let your money while you're sleeping be used for things more aligned with your values, maybe underwriting a new solar solar farm or battery storage. So how you think about your money is a huge opportunity that we just don't spend time thinking about. It doesn't mean you have to go out and buy a new electric car or do all this other stuff, which I think is great to do. That's one thing that I think is available to people that they could do right now.
I would never, never know this if you didn't share here. And I'm sure many of our listeners had no idea about this.
We
And it
never think about
requires
it.
almost zero effort, just one time.
Right.
Wow.
That's right.
That's powerful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to end by asking you a personal question, not about your grandmother this time. How do you personally stay inspired and avoid burnout because you're really busy when the stakes are so high?
I have to remind myself to take time away from the business. And it almost doesn't matter what I do, but it was actually, it wasn't even me who did it this time, but my business partner on Supercool had said to me about a week and a half ago, he was like, we were going really hard for a few weeks on, we're getting ready to launch a course about how do you actually get, if you're building a climate solution, how do you get others to adopt it? He was like, just take a few days away. Just go clear your head. And so, fortunately, like I said, we live in South Carolina near the ocean. And so, my son, who's 15, loves to fish. So, we got out on a boat, we got into the marsh. I tend to just drive the boat, which I really like, but I really love being in the marsh because this is so weird. I mean, being a New Yorker, and I've lived all over the world, and here I am on the South Carolina coast. When I get into like these little like grassy marshes and little riverways, and it almost feels like Huckleberry Finn or Tom Sawyer, or someone is about to like jump out on a raft, like jump out of the woods or come like paddling by. It feels like, I can't describe it, but it feels like I was meant to be here. It touches my soul in such a deep way to be in that landscape. I've lived in the mountains. I've lived in a lot of places. There is something about that that is so rejuvenating to me. And so it is reminding myself to just go do anything, be with my children, go be in nature. That's really reminding myself to take the time away and come back fresh. I hate doing it because it's not my nature. I want to just go, 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 go. But hopefully as I get older, I'm more attuned to realizing the quickest way to get to where I ultimately want to go is to take those breaks.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Recovery is important. Recovery time. It's part of the
Yes.
growth, right?
Right.
Wow, Josh, thank you. Such an inspiring conversation. Thank you for bringing such a fresh, grounded, and hopeful perspective to a conversation that too often feels paralyzing and also make us feel guilty, right? For buying that paper plate or cups when you have a barbecue. So tell you what I'm walking away with, and I hope our listeners are too, is that solutions create agency. Focusing on opportunities doesn't just make us more effective, it also makes us feel more alive and capable in the process. So the answers, I always say uh, to my clients, the answers are in the doing, not in the starting line. So thank you very much for being here. And if you want to follow Josh's work, check out Supercool for stories of climate solutions that are actually reshaping modern life. You can also explore his books and past projects like The Lazy Environmentalist. That's a hard word for me to say. To see how practical actions really does stack up to make a difference. And to our listeners, if this episode shifted how you see your own role in creating change, agency, motivation, recuperation, share it with someone you know who's craving a more hopeful perspective. And don't forget to subscribe to the Life Engineering so you never miss an episode. Until next time, remember, solutions fuel agency and agency fuels transformation. Thank you.